Hey, what's up guys, it's lostgriff. Welcome back to another video. Today we're coming back with a more of an interesting video today, and hopefully you guys will enjoy this format a lot more. Today we're just going to be talking about character difficulty. Now this is something that comes around a lot in the Multiversus community. People love to throw around like, oh, you're carried, your character's too easy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just going to give it my personal opinion. A lot of people think Finn's like one of the easiest characters in the game. I want to give my opinions on that and like give out kind of what I think about the character, as well as other characters that I think a lot of people talk about how, easy they are, or they play himself or whatever. Crayon eater, those words. But anyway, I'm just going to get straight into it. But before I start today's video, I want to talk about today's sponsor, me. I've actually begun and started my own clothing brand, as you guys know, and I actually do have some really good news about it. I will be doing my first drop next Tuesday on the 7th, and here's a little quick teaser of what you can expect from my clothing drop. I'd really appreciate if you guys could check out my Instagram and TikTok as well, follow those, and help support them and really get them in their algorithm. I'd appreciate you guys, and this really means a lot to me, so thank you guys so much for giving me the opportunity. Anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoy. I'm going to do one more thing to preface this tier list. I want to mention skill floor and skill ceiling are entirely differently. I want to base these characters off how easy it is to go pro with them, like become the best at them. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of people who are like, oh, these characters are easy to play. Like, of course you can play a character with a low skill floor 8 out of 10, but obviously those last 2 points are going to be pretty hard to do when you think about, what you have to master with them. For example, if they have a really hard movement tech you need to learn, or their archetype is just not easy to play at a high level. So I'm thinking about characters that genuinely, take a lot of skill to understand and actually can be hard to play at a maximum level, rather than just like, oh, I can go and play MMR, spam my Finn up tilt, and oh wow, character's easy. Like, I don't think that's like, if I really wanted to make a tier list like that, like, oh, I'm just gonna do this, wow, let's just put Jake here, or wow, let's put fucking Shaggy Stripe. That's like, this is the most Mickey Mouse tier list. I actually want to go off like things that actually matter, which in my opinion is stuff like what I just said before, where you actually base the character off how hard they are to master, rather than like, oh, they must be like, they have an OP move you can spam, that must mean, they're easy to master. Like, no, it doesn't work like that, and that doesn't say anything about a character's like skill to play at all. Starting with Batman, I think he's in the pretty easy tier. Not because he's super easy to play, but in general, just because I think Batman's archetype is something that a lot of people don't really struggle picking up. I think picking up a rushdown character, anybody can really agree, is not very hard, especially considering the fact that his kill confirms are very simple to learn. You basically just up special, and that's kind of how you kill people. There isn't really any complicated setups you need to do. He also has some really good utility to win neutral, so you don't really have to worry about neutral very often. Also, you have a glide, so it's very easy to get back on stage. A grapple for mix-ups, obviously not always good, but a good mix-up tool, etc, etc. I just think the character has a lot of like tools that he kind of like really helps him be easy to play at a higher level. This might be a little bit controversial, but I actually think this character is in the tough to learn tier, even in the high skill ceiling tier. I just think this character has so much tech that like isn't public, that people don't know about. Like, this character is like really not easy to play at a high level, because you have to know like all these different like tech situations and different spots at which you might need to use certain moves. I think he is a little bit carried by loops in terms of neutral, but I don't think he's an easy character per se, and I don't think he's like this character that's like played like automatically or anything like that. So just keep that in mind. I think you guys have more of an open mind to this character, as a lot of stuff that people like to judge about him, like let's say his dare nair is an annoying loop or easy. A lot of people just don't realize like the fact that this character actually can be pretty hard. I'm a strong believer in the fact that this is probably the easiest character, if not one of the easiest characters in the game. Wonder Woman is very easy to play, especially in 2s. In 1s, she's a more closer to Batman in terms of technicality, but in 2s, you don't really have to do much to make her like pretty much competitively viable. I mean, obviously, like, her strength has something to do with it, but it also has something to do with the fact that like all of her moves are very simple. Like, she just kind of has disjoints, with her sword. She has an armor button in case you're like in disadvantage. She has like a lot of things that make the character really easy to learn. So I don't think there's any disrespect for playing Wonder Woman. I just don't think she's a super hard character to play, and I don't think her like advanced techniques are super complex. I think the most complex thing about her is lasso and up air. At the end of the day, those are like the two most complicated things about playing this character. I think Finn we can put around here somewhere. I think the main thing that people struggled with Finn, it was definitely just learning how to use gem, but everybody's been getting better at it, and ever since then, you know, and it's become more optimized and more normalized to be good with gem on Finn. You know, it's kind of made the character the baseline get lower and lower, because there's a lot of knowledge out there too as well about Finn. Like me, Chavo, Gopo also like helped people learn this character very quickly and pick him up very quickly. So now everybody's like low experience Finn is super good, and it's just like, it's mostly because there's so many out there that like you can kind of just recreate what others are doing. It's just this character is really popular, so he's become really easy to optimize for a lot of people, and people mix that up with the fact that like, oh, he must be like really easy to play, when in reality like he really has like very unique combo routes that are DI and reaction dependent, and are not easy to pull off in a real game, and are very dependent on his success, right? He also has a lot of hard reads he has to go for that usually aren't very safe, especially like high five, for example, is a little bit hard to land sometimes now that they nerfed it slightly, and all that kind of stuff. It's just like, he's, in my opinion, he's very much just a combo oriented DI, you know, like in read based character that I don't think is super easy to play at a high level, but I still think somebody could do it pretty well. It's safe to say that Garnet's in like the slightly higher echelon of that. Like, she's not a hard character on paper in terms of like her kit. I think the hard thing about Garnet is just her meta, her like spot in the meta. Like, I think if she was just better, like she wouldn't really be that hard to play, considering, you know, you kind of just jab, you know, and you nair whenever they're off stage. Like, it's not like a super complex game plan, but this character just has so many bad matchups, and also has so many like things she struggles with in neutral, that I just can't help but put her in tough to learn or growing pains. But let me know what you guys think, but I definitely think she's in either one of these tiers. Harley's another character I'd put in pretty easy. A lot of people say character plays itself, but let's be honest, I mean, some of her loops are not that easy to learn. You have to definitely set aside some time to learn how to like stay up with her combo game, because her combo game is a little bit complex, and you know, stuff like that. The one thing I will say about Harley though is obviously she would be in this tier if, you know, I decided I was going to make one of those tier lists where it's like, oh, you know, just because they can spam a certain move, they must be easy to play, like in general. No, like this character obviously can just spam hammer, but at the end of the day, her combo routes are still pretty hard. She has a lot of setups that take a lot of time to learn and master, and she's honestly a pretty decently hard character in the grand scheme, and probably in the same area as Finn, in my opinion. Iron Giant definitely I would put in tough to learn, not because this kit itself is actually like really complex. The main thing that's hard about Iron Giant is Iron Giant's disadvantage is also something I notice a lot of Iron Giants don't know how to play. For example, if you watch players like Skizzy and Inside Out, a lot of them have insanely good disadvantages where like people will go out and try to fish for like dares and stuff, and Iron Giants will just either kill them or do like 40% for it, or just like put them in horrible situations. Like Iron Giants who know how to play disadvantage like can actually make the character look really strong, and I think that like Iron Giant isn't a good character on paper, especially in ones, but the fact that people have been able to optimize him despite like a general population only really abusing the cheese on him really shows that like he actually does have potential. People just don't really give him the effort. I think the next character we can put in character plays itself is Shaggy. Pretty self-explanatory. I just don't think he's a very hard character to play. I think he's probably the easiest character in the game, and honestly it's a good thing. Like a character being high tier while also being one of the easiest characters, like people forget that's a good thing. Like new players should be able to pick up a new character and just spam the same move on him and be able to fucking learn them. Like it's how the game works. Not everybody's gonna get into the game and like know how to play fucking, I don't know, Morty and shit like that all of a sudden. Like people need to learn the basics of the game while playing an easier character, and that's why I think Wonder Woman and Shaggy are good picks for the tutorial characters, and that's why I think, you know, either one of these players of these characters can't really argue it's meant to be easy. But I don't think it's obviously like character plays itself doesn't mean that like you can go pro on them even if you have like zero talent. Like obviously it's not easy, but you know, the kit isn't hard to learn, and the combo routes aren't that difficult either. All right, next character up for character plays itself. This is probably gonna be in the top of this tier, like right next to pretty easy, but I don't think this character deserves to be in pretty easy. I literally think this character, I don't care what anybody says, is so easy to play. I don't think she has a very complex, you know, combo like game. Like literally all you'd have to do on her is play, like if you guys watch Wavy, for example, which obviously no disrespect, still a good player, but like at the end of the day, bro, like the gameplay on this character is so like Mickey Mouse, it's actually crazy. Like you sit there, you jab, and you get like 40%, 50%, 60% confirms off of one move, and it just promotes extremely lame gameplay. And I just noticed that like at the top level, like this character is not hard to optimize. Like people's like for example, there's people who have like day one, you know, Arias that are literally like half, if not 80% as good as like their mains, and it's insane to me. So I don't know. I just think Arya is like really not that hard of a character to play. And then on top of that, I would say also I would say Jake would probably go in the character plays itself tier. I mean, let's just be real. Like, this character's not hard to play. If you watch, like, J Mafia play him, for example, like, he obviously, again, not easy, but not hard. Really, all you have to do on this character is just put people in 50-50s. And I feel like the setups he has to do that are really not that hard. And I don't think this character is that hard for that reason. I think Arya and Jake are kind of in the same tier in terms of difficulty. I do think that, like, these two characters are really, really easy to play. Especially Jake with his dare. The dare is the main reason why I think he's so easy to play, is like his neutral is just one off one button. It's a kill move, it's a neutral tool, it's a combo tool, it does all these things, and it's literally one move that you can spam at the beginning and also spam at the top. This character is just insane. Fair is also really good. House is still pretty solid. There's a lot of just other things about this character that makes him really easy. So yeah, Black Adam I think deserves to go in the Growing Pains tier. Obviously there's a reason why there's not a bunch of Black Adam players. He's not very easy. Even whenever he was really viable, like, he's not a very easy character. His combo game is pretty tough to learn. You really have to try really hard to in order to make this character worth it, because it's kind of like Garnet in that they both have pretty nice combo game to an extent. The only problem with them is like they're heavy, and having to play heavies in this game is really, really hard if you don't have a, you know, ridiculous upside to it. But anyway, like, these two characters are just not really easy to play, considering their big hitboxes, and also just considering the fact that, like, you know, even though Black Adam has a decent disadvantage because of his fly, he also just has a lot of flaws as a character that a lot of characters can exploit, especially if they don't really rely on projectiles. So characters like, for example, Harley, or characters like Arya, can kind of just walk in on Black Adam and just not really give a fuck and just combo him for like 60%, because they don't need projectiles to win. And that's what big upside about Black Adam is like, you know, his ability to get rid of projectiles and deal with them very well. So having that big sacrifice makes his neutral and his overall gameplay a little bit harder whenever you're not playing against a character who is in that specific, you know, matchup. Next up is LeBron. I would also put this character in maybe around this, maybe around, I would say probably Growing Pains is fair. I think this character has some Growing Pains, but in general, not a very hard character to learn. I do think he has some pretty complex stuff you need to keep in mind about him. I don't think he's like the easiest character in the game, but I also don't think he's the hardest. I think he's like the perfect middle ground. This character, like, generally has like a lot of potential in terms of like sauce. Like, if you watch El Bebe, for example, shout out to him, really, really good LeBron player that shows like how complex his combo game can go, how much stuff you can do with without and with ball. Having to basically play two characters with different movesets at the same time is a little bit complex. Definitely not easy to do. I would put him probably actually near the top here, near tough to learn, because again, much different from a lot of other characters in this game. It still has a really cool design that I really enjoy. Next up is Morty. I would say this is probably the highest skill ceiling character, or one of the highest skill ceiling characters in the game. Character is really not hard to play, in my opinion. I personally think, like, if you watch like some of like the Morty guide videos out there about like how to use his grenade really well, how to optimize some of his combos, and how to also optimize his combos with his utility, this character just has a really high skill ceiling, and there's really no other argument for it. Do I think Bug's setups are more complicated than Morty? You could argue that, but I also think that Morty has a lot more complex combo game, and also has more complex like features you need to know about him that Bugs doesn't really have access to. Therefore, I think Morty is definitely harder. And the hardest character in the game, I think, is Rick. I think this would be much more true if he wasn't one of the best characters in the game right now. But if he's like, let's say in a world where Rick is mid tier, like, this character would be so hard to like be like the best at, because I mean, if you consider it, you have to do so much stuff, and it's very hard to be able to like know what to do in every situation whenever you have that many options. And a lot of Rick players, you notice, really get analysis paralysis and start panicking and start portaling at a disadvantage, because like it's really hard to like have all that stuff in your brain, especially with how much experience it takes for it to become natural. So this character is just really hard. I think they designed him really well, but he has a lot of strengths he shouldn't have, in my opinion, in terms of balance. That's all our discussion. But basically the best way I'm trying to say is, like, obviously with all balance aside, with factoring in balance here, obviously it'd be like here, but if we're just factoring in just based off difficulty of learning the character, like, I think he's the hardest character in the game. All right, I don't really feel bad about putting this character in character plays itself. I don't think Velma's hard to play in 2s or 1s. I just think nobody plays her because she's not fun to play. The character is extremely corny and, in my opinion, doesn't really have a lot of fun and intuitive mechanics to deal with. So I just think the character, just overall, based on what she does, you could argue she's in this tier because of 1s. I mean, she's hard to play in 1s to an extent, I think at least. But in general, yeah, we'll put her here just because, I mean, there's no way she's in the same tier as like Jake. Like, she's definitely easy, but there is some things about her that some people might not, you know, find easy to pick up. Like, if we look at Velma here, I mean, if you think about it, there's a lot of cooldown management you have to deal with. So you have to deal with, like, you know, having multiple cooldowns, and a lot of characters don't really have that. As small of a thing as that is to manage, a lot of characters don't really also, you know, have stuff like that. But, you know, there's also this move. I mean, this move isn't as broken as it used to be, but it still exists. So, all right, here comes my most hated character, Stripe. I don't think this character is well designed at all. I think he was actually designed by, I swear this was designed by, like, fucking the dude who made Super Smash Flash 2 in, like, literally 2014, bro. Like, I don't know what they were thinking with this character. Like, I'm sorry, like, this character is horrible. And I don't think he's easy. I don't think he's, like, you know, the right amount of difficulty considering his archetype. I don't think they designed him well. And there's just a lot of reasons why I don't think this character is very fun to deal with or to play. I think he literally has like 4 moves you can use and literally be top level with him. Especially in 2s. He's more known for being annoying in 2s more than he is in 1s, simply because of how much damage he does and just how many hitboxes and how many like annoying things he throws out all at once. Overall, really annoying character to deal with. Not a massive fan of the character's design, and I don't think he's very much harder, if not harder at all, than either of these 2 characters. I don't know. PFG, if you're watching this, please rework this character. Raindog, I would say, is in the pretty easy tier. I mean, after all, he is kind of PFG's character, so they have to make him kind of easy to play. I don't think this character is super hard to play. The only thing that's mainly hard about him is his disadvantage, period. I don't really think there's anything super crazy about playing him. The main obstacle for literally any Raindog player is learning how to play disadvantage with him. His neutrals isn't really that hard to learn. His combo game is kind of complicated, but not really. And everything else about him isn't really that hard. But the main thing that comes to mind is just genuinely his disadvantage and how hard it can be to recover sometimes. Especially as a light but big hitbox character, people can just punish that so hard in this game. Next up is Steven Universe. I think he's at top of tough to learn. This character is really not that easy to play. People have always kind of harbored this belief for a long time about Steven that he's not really easy to play. And I mean, I don't really think he's easy to play at all. Like, I mean, if you look at his kit, right? Like, if we just look at what Steven has. So side special, up special. This is usually what people do in order to like trap opponents. But in general, like, how are you really gonna bait a high level player to walk into this like circle? Like, nobody's gonna do that. So you really have to put people in situations where they have to interact with it. But anyway, yeah, this character, you know, his combo game is really fun, and he's like definitely, his overall stubbiness is not that hard to deal with whenever you get used to it. But overall, this character just has a lot of setups and stuff in terms of his shields, and also just in terms of using his watermelon to your advantage, and also like other different things that makes this character hard. Oh yeah, also this, if you have a teammate using this is really well, is very hard. You have to be very aware of where your teammate is and have to be very smart with it. There's that. There's just a lot of things that are hard about this character, and there's a reason why, despite his constant strength, because I've always believed he's been one of the best 2s characters for a long time, but there's just so little people that play him because of just how difficult he is, or also just because there's been characters that do it but much easier. Next up is Superman. I think this character has some growing pains. I actually used to think he kind of played himself, but this character is kind of hard to play. He has some hard movement tech. It's not exactly easy to learn how to get people with this character. As cringy as it is, this character has a little bit of a high skill floor at the beginning, especially because, you know, if you walk around playing Superman, right? Let's say I'm a Superman player, bro. You hop in, you know, casual or whatever to go play against a Superman. A lot of them will just do this. Like, that's literally all they do. But whenever you play against a better Superman, bro, and they fucking nair you and fucking take all your resources, bro, it's torture. Because I don't even know how to wave dash or whatever they do. But, you know, regardless, this character is crazy right now. And overall, I do think he's hard to play. I just think he has a high skill floor, and that's why I would say. I don't think he has a high skill ceiling. I think he has a high skill floor. Taz, I would personally say, is in the pretty easy tier. Now, I know you guys might say, like, oh, dude, but Taz is like one of the worst characters. But, like, in reality, what is really hard about playing this character? Like, let's really think about it, right? The only real thing that's hard about him is his viability. And, like, I don't think that has to make a character harder, right? I mean, realistically, all the most complex thing about this character in terms of combo game is just doing this. And even then, that's not even true anymore, it looks like, as long as you DI out. So again, there's really nothing complex about playing this character. Like, sure, you have to worry about, like, you know, cooldown management with your tornado and up special, but like anybody can do that. It kind of just like does itself, especially because after you up special, your tornado's always back up, so you can always like keep that in mind, usually. So in general, just like his character, people just like to say is hard just because he's like, you know, he hasn't been viable for a while or whatever, but especially after now he's actually has some good anti-airs, you know. That was like really what he needed. The main problem with Taz was like if you jumped over him, like Taz couldn't do anything about it. Now he literally can just walk around like Finn up tilt and just do this, and it kind of works. Like unironically, it kind of works. Like he has hella juggle game now. It's kind of broken, I'm not even gonna lie. So the character's definitely slept on. And I think he might actually, you know, with this few more small buffs, might become like high mid tier, like even top tier, potentially. So keep your eye out on this character, bro. Tom and Jerry, I think, just no question, pretty much is no argument, high skill ceiling character. I mean, if you really think about it, you really are controlling two characters at that point, a lot of the time, and you really have to be aware of like how to position yourself, because again, this character, just like Rain Dog, has terrible disadvantage. So if you know how to abuse a character's disadvantage, like for example, you're playing a Batman, you're playing a Finn, then this character can be so hard to play overall. And you know, like having to manage like so many different things on this character as well is definitely not easy. And overall, I just think, you know, having all this cooldown management, having to manage your combo game, having to manage playing with Jerry and stuff, and using it to your advantage. Because again, a lot of stuff, there's a lot of tech about this character people don't know. Like for example, if you rack it, it'll go towards you, and if you swing your Sair, it'll go like away from you with the cork. People don't even know that. Like, so yeah, just managing like how to use your corks and just playing Tom and Jerry real time is actually just not an easy thing to do. And I think this character, despite being super fun, is not very easy. Gizmo's another character I would classify as growing pains as a character. Genuinely, this character has a lot of stuff that you need to like spend a lot of time learning about him. I mean, his ladders aren't very easy to do. I mean, some of these combos are really not that easy to do, like, you know, the good old fair and you know, up special and arrow and up special, you know what I mean? Those combos, you really have to be aware of how the opponent is DIing and react really quickly, similarly to Finn. Not to mention his neutral is a little bit harder in terms of like, you know, comparing like characters like Finn, because he doesn't really have disjoints like that. Like, despite being a ladder character and having some cheese and stuff like that, and having popcorn and all these different things, he's a very good, strong character in my opinion. People for some reason rank his low tier, which makes no sense to me. But like, this character in general just has a lot of stuff and a lot of sauce that like people don't really know how to do. For example, Car isn't very easy to control. Like, you know, people don't even know the inputs for it. Like, but yeah, even if you don't know how to use Car, this character is still really fun. And honestly, I do think this is a character people should explore more in general. Definitely one of the most fun characters in the game if I had to rank it personally. All right, finally, Marvin, one of the newer characters. I personally think this character is also in the growing pains tier, and it also has kind of a lot of the same reasons as Gizmo. Like, Marvin is really solid right now. He's a lot of strengths about him. He's a lot of things that, you know, really gives me hope about the character. But at the end of the day, he's still really hard to play. I mean, you really have to learn how to use this rocket right. You have to learn his combo game and how to, like, you know, properly set up with it with projectiles. He's basically kind of like Bugs in that he has a lot of setup tools, right? And like, if you're not using these setup tools at a high level, you're not going to get very far with this character. Because I mean, nobody's going to be scared of the Marvin that's sitting here doing this all game. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't that hard to do. Like, this isn't that hard to do, and they buff this combo a lot. But what, it's 20%? Like, that's really nothing. And most of other true combos with Marvin are like 30-40% of that, right? So this character doesn't really have many like combo game, doesn't have like crazy combo game to make your neutral really easy. But he's also like really light and generally has a lot of weaknesses and lack of get off me tools. So it's just like this character is very easy to abuse his weaknesses, and also his setups are a little bit big brain. So you have to be smart just with what you're doing, and just really think about like how to play this character efficiently.